Tonight on Nation to Nation, a forgotten Indigenous organization is looking to get back on the map, and it has a new leader to do it.
I'm going to pick up the ball and we're going to start playing hardball. Like, we're going to get back on track.
And the TikTok sensation in Iqaluit is trying to lift people's spirits as well as their own.
It helps open me up, and it helps me be a happier and more enthusiastic and positive person.
Hello, I'm Todd Lamourant, and welcome to Nation to Nation. It's one of the 5 federally recognized Indigenous groups and was founded in 1971. CAP says it's the national voice of the Métis, status and non-status First Nations, and Southern Inuit living outside of their communities. That's about 70% of all Indigenous people in Canada. We're talking about the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, or CAP. But you don't hear or see much of them in the news these days. It's as if they've fallen to the wayside. So why isn't that national voice being heard more? To discuss that and more, I'm now joined by National Chief of CAP, Elmer St. Pierre, who was elected last October to lead the organization. Welcome to Nation, National Chief St. Pierre.
Thank you very much for the interview, Todd.
You were just elected as National Chief in October. Why did you want to lead CAP?
I found that our grassroots people were being left behind. We've, in the last, we've been around for 50 years. This year will be our 50th year. And my plan is to make sure our grassroots people is heard at the top level, and to make sure that we're all on the same playing ground, and get our equal rights of what all the other 3 NIOs are receiving.
And when you say the other 3, we're talking about the AFN, the Métis National Council, and the ITK, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Why do you think that's happened in the past 5 years, that you aren't a part of a lot of these discussions going around Ottawa?
I'm not quite sure. We've asked why aren't we there? Because there's one other organization that should be there as well, and that's the Native Women. And nobody wants to give me a straight answer. Who's to blame? Why we're not there? I'm assuming that the 3 other organizations, MNC, ITK, and AFN, they have something to do with it. But that's just my theory on it. And but the thing is, we are slowly getting back talking to different ministers. Like, for instance, an hour ago, I was with the food restriction of Northern Ontario under the COVID-19 program. So we're slowly getting back there, but I'm here for 4 years. I'm not going to go anywhere. And if it has to be a fight, then it'll be a fight.
Do you think it had anything to do with your predecessor, National Chief Bertrand? There were questions surrounding his indigeneity. Do you think that had contributed anything?
I don't want to talk bad about Robert, but when I heard that, I think it was I got it through Facebook or wherever it was. I got it through. I was very, very disappointed at the way he presented himself. Because I know, like you said, an Algonquin person I am. I'm a very proud Algonquin person, and I've got proof. And and you're right. It may have had some impact on the way Robert presented himself. I know other organizations that through their membership, you got a chief that doesn't know whether he's Algonquin or what he is. So I'm sure it had an impact on us.
Now, of course, people are going to watch the show and maybe they've forgotten or don't know who CAP is. As you say, you've been around for 50 years. So how is it possible that they don't know about CAP and what you've done?
I think the biggest thing is that we haven't been in the public eye probably for the last 5 years. and it's thanks to you that you're going to make a start, and hopefully it'll continue on different things, different issues.
I suppose it doesn't help that, for example, your biggest known case is the Daniels case, which is a Congress of Aboriginal Peoples case, that some people mistakenly think it's a Métis National Council case. So I suppose, how do you change that kind of relationship with people, with Indigenous people who live off reserve?
Well, I think that's what happened with CAP as well. When the Daniels case decision come down, I believe our leadership had dropped the ball on that. And because the ball was dropped, I think MNC kind of picked it up and kind of made it look like it was their decision, like their case, where in reality it was MNC had nothing to do with the Daniels. It was all CAP. So it's sad to say that I believe it was leadership that dropped the ball, and basically what I said in my opening remarks to the assembly was, I'm going to pick up the ball and we're going to start playing hardball. Like, we're going to get back on track again.
All right, what's the first thing you're going to do to play this hardball to get back on track?
Well, the biggest thing that we're fighting with right now is the COVID-19. We finally got recognition to have half decent money that we can look after our families and our grassroots people. Then, Tom, we're working on racism in the healthcare system and the justice. And one of my speeches was that I want to be able to sit with the ministers again and have CAP recognized at the minister level of when they all meet and talk.
Well, National Chief St. Pierre, good luck with that, and I hope we certainly will have more conversations with you over the coming months and years.
Well, I thank you again, Todd. And one other thing I'd like to say is that we started in a good relationship with the Minister Bennett. We had already had a meeting with her, and we have a follow-up meeting in April. Normally, under our political accord, Minister Bennett, we're to meet twice a year, I think it is, and I think I've got her nailed down to she's going to try and meet with us every 3 months. So I think it's a good start. I think we're heading the right direction, and and with people like yourself putting us out there on the news and let the people know that CAP has not died. We're still here, and we're here live and kicking.
Okay. Well, you certainly are live and kicking, and once again, thank you for speaking to me.
And thank you too, Todd.
After the break, we talked to a young TikTok influencer from Iqaluit who was recently named Young Inuk Woman of the Year. We find out why. Welcome back. Quite recently, the Paktutiit Inuit Women of Canada named their Inuk Woman of the Year. But for the first time, they named their Young Inuk Woman of the Year. Her name is Annie Buscemi. She's from Iqaluit and has had a TikTok channel for about a year, where she shows her daily life. Everything from strumming her guitar, to making coffee in the morning, to getting some mail. Here's a sample that she calls Aurora Borealis.
Ula good morning, happy day 114. Today I think we should stay alive to watch the Aksangli dance. They're so vibrant and bright, and they dance so beautifully, and sometimes they turn purple and pink. I think they're so beautiful. Just don't whistle at them. Have a good day.
But since last autumn, the videos have had an extra special meaning to them. Here to explain that is Annie Buscemi. Ms. Buscemi, welcome to Nation to Nation.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, that's good. Now, that video we just showed said it was day 114 of listing Inuk specific reasons to stay alive. What exactly have you been trying to do for what's more than 114 days now?
Yes, I've been doing this for about, today is day 117, and I started doing this series mainly because I'm an apprentice electrician and I got injured in last August and haven't been working since then. And also because I do have a lot of anxiety and I do get into my little depression pits from time to time. And when I realized that I was injured and I wasn't able to work for a long time, I was scared to get into that deep pit again. So I wanted to start something to do something every day to keep myself happy and healthy.
Has it been hard to come up with something new every day?
Some days it was. For a long time, it wasn't that hard, simply because in the Inuit culture, there are so many beautiful aspects of our culture. And some days it's a little bit tougher than others because this is such a hard topic to talk about. And but yeah, the more research that I do, the more people that I reach out to, the more that I'm connected with my community. Some of these reasons aren't very hard to come up with at all.
Well, you certainly get excited with some of the reasons, especially when you get mail, for example. When you get food in the mail, we can see the excitement there. So I guess that's what you're talking about when it's kind of easy to come up with the material.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, you seem very positive and upbeat in these videos. Has it helped you to overcome this anxiety and depression that you talk about?
Yeah, very much so. Being able to say these things out loud, sometimes over and over and over, it helps open me up and it helps me be a happier and more enthusiastic and positive person.
Now, you've gotten over 10,000 followers. Do you think it's helped other people who are watching your videos? Like, what kind of feedback have you been getting?
Yeah, I get a lot of good feedback and I get a lot of wonderful messages simply thanking me for making the videos. And also there are some people that have reached out to me and said that I've helped them in a time that when they were in a hard place, they were able to pull up my videos and, you know, it helped make them feel better as well.
Has there ever been a day where you just, again, because of anxiety and depression, you just didn't want to get out of bed and do one of these videos?
Yes, there's been many, many days like this. There were some days that I've forced myself to try to be positive just for the video, but I've found out by doing that, that's actually draining me and my energy. So when I do have days like that, I will take a step back and I will take care of myself just so I can be the positive, enthusiastic person that I am in the videos.
Do you ever get worried that it's too invasive, that people are getting to know you too well? Because we see you, you know, I could already tell that you enjoy coffee, for example, from watching your videos. Is there ever that concern that you have?
Yes, there definitely is. And sometimes I have to, when I do make a video, and sometimes it does get a little bit too personal, and that I'm not comfortable with that. I'm a very introverted, very shy person. And it does get kind of overwhelming because now that when I walk around town, people know my face. People will stop and say hi or say thank you. And sometimes that's a little bit overwhelming for me. But yeah.
Well, I guess it's tough, I guess, in a small town like Iqaluit. You're obviously must be a celebrity there by now.
Yeah, I've gotten that a couple times. Yeah, everywhere I go, there's someone that says something, or you know, they give me that look, and I can tell on their face they've seen my face somewhere.
So, how long do you think you're going to continue to do this daily thing to get people to feel positive about themselves?
I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I'm able to. I'm still currently not working, but I still plan on making videos like this. When I do go back to work, it probably won't be as consistent as it is. But yeah, I plan on doing this for as long as I can because this has really changed my life and has made me such a happier and positive person.
Well, that's good to hear. Of course, you mentioned earlier that you were an apprentice electrician when you got injured, and you just told me you're not working. So I suppose, when will you be going back to that?
My next doctor's appointment is on the 25th of February, and I've already spoken with the WSCC about making a plan to get back to work. So I've actually been planning to get back to work since the end of January, but my hand is still not completely healed, and there's still so many steps to take towards healing, and also the paperwork as well. So I'm hoping that I'll be back to work either at the end of February or at the beginning of March.
Okay, well, thank you for spending some time to talk to me about it. Again, it's on TikTok. I believe it's called Annie Nevi is your handle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. And I've seen a lot of these. They're great. I urge everybody to check them out. Ms. Buscemi, thank you for spending some time with me.
Thank you so much.
After the break, we speak to APTN News reporter Brett Forrester about how the federal government knew ahead of time that there would be violence against lobster harvesters in Nova Scotia. Welcome back. It was just a few months ago when Mi'kmaq lobster harvesters were being harassed by non-Mi'kmaq fishers. Buildings were burned, lobster catches destroyed, and boats surrounded. It seemed chaotic at times, and it was all because the Mi'kmaq were trying to earn a living, something they are entitled to do. Well, it turns out the federal government saw it all coming and didn't try to stop it. APTN News reporter Brett Forrester broke this story last week, and he's here to talk more about it. Brett, welcome to Nation to Nation.
Thanks for having me on the show, Todd.
Now, you were able to get your hands on some documents that show the feds not only predicted the violence, but basically allowed it to happen. Can you explain more?
Certainly. So within the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, there is a federal law enforcement agency, and it's called Conservation and Protection. And the C&P branch, as it's called, has an internal fisheries intelligence unit. And this intelligence unit was actively tracking protest activity in southwestern Nova Scotia. They really had their finger on the pulse of this simmering anger and frustration amongst the local community. And so in one particularly telling example, a fishery intel officer forwarded an email up the chain of command on September 16th, which was the day before the launch of the Sabaganagati First Nations moderate livelihood fishery. And this officer explained that there was a commercial protest plan for the following morning. There was an anticipated 200 to 300 vessels that were going to be participating in this protest. The vessels were expected to be among the scallop fishing fleet, and they were actively planning to haul Mi'kmaq gear out of the bay. So they were aware the day before that a vigilante protest action was planned, and they did very little to intervene or to do anything at all. And people who were observing at that time, pointed out that there was the appearance of an unequal application of the law, right? You can just imagine if there was 200 to 300 commercial vessels belonging to First Nations people who were in the opposite spot. You can just imagine that there would perhaps be a more forceful response from law enforcement.
In fact, the Mi'kmaq harvesters were asking for protection, but what did the federal government do instead?
So they didn't increase any law enforcement resources. A request to bring in additional fisheries officers was not made. The RCMP did not increase their presence in the region until later. And then again, much later, the Coast Guard wasn't called in until after the violence erupted on September 17th. What the feds did in response to a letter from Sabaganagati Chief Mike Sack that was dated September 11th is they started writing a letter of their own. And we obtained a copy of this letter, and it basically says to the chief, thanks for raising these important issues, and we'd like to meet with you at your earliest convenience. But they wanted to remind him of federal policy, which is that all moderate livelihood fishing, in their view, has to go through these rights reconciliation agreement tables. And this is something that Chief Sack rejected right out of hand. So the parties were very far apart. So really, they didn't do a lot in terms of taking action to resolve this issue.
Brett, you reported that fishery officers were directed to stand down when violence was unfolding at sea. Why did that happen?
Well, a senior law enforcement official within the DFO had basically done a risk assessment with other senior officers, and they had decided that it was too dangerous for fisheries officers to get in the middle of this thing. And this is a very important issue because the DFO C&P branch is a creature of statute. It has a mandate to enforce the Fisheries Act, how it's written. And of course, in 1999, during the Marshall case, the Fisheries Act was overturned on 3 counts. Donald Marshall Jr. was convicted of fishing eels out of season. He was convicted of selling those eels, and he was convicted of using an illegal net to catch them. And he was acquitted on all 3 counts. And the based on the Mi'kmaq Nation having a treaty. And the Fisheries Act was never really amended to resolve this dispute. So as the fishery officers are out there trying to enforce the Fisheries Act, what ends up happening is that they're more concerned with policing the Mi'kmaq fishery than protecting it. So they viewed gear destroying, intimidation, harassment, boat chasing as being the responsibility for the RCMP, whereas the RCMP viewed wharf access, fisheries access, public safety and security on the water as being the responsibility of the DFO and the Coast Guard. So there was a bit of a jurisdictional law enforcement vacuum that occurred, and no one really stepped in to fill it.
But this wasn't just a protest over treaty rights, as the feds called it. It was violent and what some Mi'kmaq would say naked racism. How long would it be before the federal government saw it this way?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that they did come forward and attribute this to racism. Certainly the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister in the past have acknowledged that systemic racism pervades every institution within the public service, and I would imagine the law enforcement agency within DFO is not exempt from that.
Now, Brett, where do you think the story's going to go next?
I think I'm going to keep digging into the policy element here. As I said before, the federal policy on moderate livelihood fishing is abundantly clear in these documents. They view all fishing has to go through these rights reconciliation agreements. And what these agreements do is they basically ask a community to come up with the amount of lobsters you think you need to reach a moderate livelihood. How many traps do you need to reach a moderate livelihood? And then the federal government will go into a licensing bank of licenses that they have bought back from commercial fishermen who are retiring. And then they will give these licenses to the First Nation along with capacity building money. For a defined period of time. It's usually 8 to 10 years. And if you sign one of the agreements, you get these licenses, you get these capacity building funds, but you have to agree not to assert your treaty right for the duration of the deal. So it doesn't necessarily resolve the issue. It's not a nation-to-nation accord. And then, again, it doesn't acknowledge those problems that I'm pointing to earlier. And this policy basically fell apart during this conflict. So we're going to take a look at that and hopefully shed some light there.
Okay, well, Brett, thank you for keeping an eye on this, and I can't wait to see what else you dig up. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Todd Lamourant. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. And thank you for watching.